second on the agenda is the minutes for approval, April 20th, 2020 regular session, May 4th, 2020 special meeting. Move approved. Second. Motion second. Any questions, comments? Not to advance.
Keith?
Yes.
Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Sandler?
Yes.
Wright?
yes,
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. Unfinished business item, no amendments. Now number 4, action items. 4A, discussion action, budget division, FY 2019-2020 appropriations. Aaron, you did, Steve, you did that?
Between April 16th and May 13th, we had budget appropriations totaling $118,576,596.05. Interfund transfers for your approval totaling $1,131,174, and budget transfers totaling $14,709,253.36. I'll point out that of the interfund transfers, there is the next action item on the agenda is one of those entities.
Questions or comments, Steve? Facing the most to approve. Second. Second.
Keith?
Yes.
Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Sandler?
Yes.
Wright?
yes,
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. Item 4B, discussion possible action, request from the sheriff to redirect $20,600 from the courthouse security budget fund.
So this was the 10% reserve from the general fund appropriation, $206,000 that would go into courthouse security. And we're just asking that that reserve amount also be appropriated to E911 for next fiscal year.
That's correct. We had budgeted for this money to go from the general fund to E911. So that's what we just approved in action item number 8. And so this would take that and from the sheriff's cash, move it to E911. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Your motion? Move approval. Second. Motion second.
Keith?
Yes.
Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Sandler?
Yes.
Wright?
yes,
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. 4C, discussion possible action, request to release juvenile hero reserves.
Yes. Budget division requested 10% reserve be released for Fund 100, which is juvenile fund. The revenue has been 97% collected as of May 12th.
Questions, comments? Move approval. Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Okay.
Keith?
Yes.
Newberry?
Yes.
Regalado?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Sandler? Wright?
yes,
Willis?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes. 4D, discussion possible action in parks, request transfer $786,000, $750,648 from parks contingency fund to parks fund for capital equipment purchase, cover operating capital needs. Any something to say about that?
So the majority of the ask is heavy on golf course equipment and construction. So we have several of our key items that we need to maintain. Our golf courses, which generate over 60% of our revenue of our park fund. If some of the hours that we've been logging on some of our green skis and rough mowers, if they were automobiles, they would be at least 230,000 to 400,000 miles for each of the vehicles. So they run in hours, and so to illustrate this past Friday, we had a mower on the greens over at Fortune. Just as we went out to go ahead and mow the putting green, this piece of equipment had been repaired several times, and the hydraulic leaked, actually blew a hydraulic line, and it pretty much inflicted a swath of about 4 foot by 30 foot grass that he was trying to mitigate. So it's those types of equipment that we need to maintain the golf courses. That, of course, is the majority of our revenue stream.
Move approval.
What do you say? Say. Raise questions.
Before we do that, just, Vince, can you talk about your overall fund balance and what the impact of this is gonna be to that?
So the overall dollars that we do have, and Christine and the community to really help and educate me on, and what it does, it's a good chunk out of the available funds, and it just reduces our cash availability. It's not reduced to the point where we're not able to go ahead and fund everything for the rest of the year. In fact, one of the items on there is $185,000 transferred into contingency into the general fund to go ahead and cover the rest of the fiscal year that's right now. As our revenues continue to generate the rest of the year, those funds will be generated in our fund moving forward. So we are very optimistic that now the golf courses are open along with tennis centers. We'll start making some money in the event that there's some sort of legislative act that allows recuperation of lost revenues. That potentially go ahead and go back into that bucket. Okay? In the month of April, we did not realize $280,000 in revenues system from the insurance.
Thank you.
Further questions? Comments? Yes. Seeing none, you okay?
Keith,
Yes.
Newberry,
Yes.
Regalado,
Yes.
Salee,
Yes.
Summer,
Yes.
Wright,
yes,
Willis,
Yes,
Peters.
Yes. Before we discuss the possible action and budget review, potential information, pictures to approve the budget. Let's talk about that. We're doing it.
sure we have a, hold on, I'm back. What do you need a copy of? This one? I think I remember we still need to revisit the district attorney. Was there another one we needed to revisit?
Yeah. Look at public defenders, what we're gonna do in this part.
I think we already took action on the public defender. The vehicle, we have a trickle down vehicle that's gonna go to the building office can assign to that one.
And the district attorney called, before I came down, said withdraw the request for overtime.
That's handy.
So they're asking for a flat budget?
Yes.
I'd still like to address that one.
Which one, the district attorney?
District.
Well, I only had one other item I just wanted to mention on this, and that was that since we met, I've had a couple conversations with folks that would potentially have the ability to help us bolster our fund balance for the year. And I just wanted to provide a shout out here. I don't see him online, but Justin Jones from Juvenile really should have the Gold Star Award because last year at this time we budgeted, historically we budgeted a fair amount of money as essentially contingency for them. And generally every year we end up having to transfer it to them. It used to be $570,000 each year for years. A couple of years ago, they asked for that to go up because there was some uncertainty with the Office of Juvenile Affairs. So last year we budgeted that at $982,000. And normally this would be the time of year when we would be sending that to them. And we contacted them a couple weeks ago, and the good news is they're not going to need that $982,000 this year, which is really great for our fund balance going into the end of the year. They had included that same amount in next year's budget, and I asked Justin if there might be any way that we could trim that down some, and he agreed to trim that down to $800,000. It's a net improvement of $182,000 on next year's budget as well. So they are going to have some impact from OJA for next year because of state cuts and different things going on, but they've been really good at being a team player on the budget. So I just want to recognize that. I think our team is they'll reflect that in the budget documents that we'll be asked to approve next month, when we actually approve the budget. But just wanted to note that.
Can I comment on it real quick? So they're not taking the 900,000 this year, but next year anticipate taking that minus about 100,000.
182.
How do they determine that? I mean, my question is are we sure on that? Because I'd hate to get to the next year where I think is where we're gonna feel the impact, and maybe more than that, and we can have that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why do they not need it now?
They don't need it now because they received a lot of revenue, additional revenue from OJA. Their OJA contract is being reworked. They've been contracted for 55 beds, so essentially they get paid for 55 beds, even if there are only 50 kids there. Next year, that contract's going down to 40, so they'll only get paid for 40, plus it's gonna be a reduced percentage. And so Justin felt pretty good about the need to leave that in to a certain degree. We were just really lucky this year because of a few other things that have happened with vacancies, different things that were going on where they just didn't need that drawdown, which is a great thing.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a question about DDAs. I understand they are going to withdraw the charge overrun, but they were going to take the budget reduction in travel, office supplies, and law books and rental to cover the additional request for Doug Wilson. So what's going to happen to that? Can we make it as a flat budget, or should I still release $22,000 from this?
Somebody wants to withdraw his request for an open.
Right. So, but yeah, in order to, he was originally asking was $40,000, and then he was gonna hit $20,900 to ask, netted $19,200. So now he's withdrawing all. So do we still give him back $20,800 to make a flat budget? Am I making sense?
You are making sense. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
His original ask was 40. He
Right.
revised it to 19 to,
Okay.
now he's canceling that part.
Okay,
So
we
I would
give back
assume
$20,800.
his request would be to take it back to flat. But Dennis, you had something related.
Yeah, I still want to address this thing, even on a flat budget request, because at the end of the day, I think it's really important that the county receive what it's paying for. And I don't think we are receiving what we're paying for, even with a flat budget. Because, and so if we're going to fund them at all, I would hope that we would have an understanding with the district attorney's office. The civil division lawyers that we are paying for are not going to be used for non-civil matters. We discussed expungements last time, and I don't know if you all realize what that is, but basically when someone is arrested, a record is created. A charge may be filed or a charge may not be filed, but a record is created of that arrest. If they are charged, ultimately that charge may be dismissed. Ultimately, there may be a conviction. Ultimately, there may be, you go ahead and charge, but there's an acquittal. But in any event, at some point, the person that has been arrested or charged or ultimately vindicated comes in and seeks to have that record expunged. That's what an expungement is. And sometimes the district attorney will go on with it. Sometimes they want to fight it, and that's fine. But the civil division lawyers are being used to litigate that issue. And what I'm saying to you is Tulsa County does not have a dog in that fight. If the expungement is granted, Tulsa County is neither better off nor worse off. If the expungement is not granted, Tulsa County is neither better off nor worse off. Now, Steve Kunzweiler did some pretty fancy footwork here the other day, and I was kind of impressed with it. He said, well, you know, we have to deal with the court clerk's office on this because the court clerk has the records, and that's a county office. Well, guess what? The court clerk has the records on every divorce case. The court clerk has the records on every car wreck case. But we don't have a dog in that fight. The mere fact that Don Newberry retains the records is not enough of a nexus for us to be paying to fund the lawyers to go litigate whether that record should be expunged or not. And the mere fact that they might occasionally consult, sheriff here, which I think is a great thing. I'm glad they consult with the sheriff to get his input or his senior staff's input on it. But again, whether at the end of the day, because Kunzweiler is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, if Vic wants it expunged or doesn't want it expunged, Vic makes the final decision. I'm sorry, Steve Kunzweiler makes the final decision, not the sheriff. So it's just a recommendation. And in my mind, that is not enough of a nexus to justify us paying for lawyers to go litigate that kind of stuff. They also litigate forfeiture, by the way. And if you don't know what that is, you have some guy going down the highway and there's probable cause to pull him over for something, taillight, whatever. And the officer looks in the vehicle and sees a bunch of $100 bills sprawled all over the back seat, $100,000 in cash. Most people don't drive around with $100,000 in cash or even $30,000 in cash. So probably what's going to happen is a forfeiture action, because the presumption is that those are drug monies or monies obtained in some sort of illegal activity. And that's fine that the district attorney seeks to have those funds forfeited, but the civil lawyers are in there litigating that stuff. It has absolutely nothing to do with the county. If that forfeiture is granted, the county is neither better off nor worse off. If the forfeiture is denied, the county is neither better off nor worse off. My point is, we're funding legal work for stuff where we don't have a dog in the fight. We don't, and we haven't. And this has gone on for a long, long time. And it really needs to stop, because we're paying for a benefit that we're not receiving. And I keep hearing, by the way, for me personally, in my office, I've had great results from Doug. I have nothing bad to say about him at all. Nothing. He's done a great job for us, for the treasurer's office. But I do hear that they are slow on contracts for commissioners. I don't know firsthand if that's true or not, but I hear that. I understand that Michael might want to hire a lawyer for some other stuff too. It might be that if all of their energy, time, and effort were spent on doing the work that we're already paying for, we might not have to go out and look for other lawyers. It might be that if they spend all their time, energy, and effort working on contracts for our commissioners, the commissioners might be able to get their contracts back in more time than that. So my recommendation is, and I'll live with it whatever this board does, because I've lived with it for a long time, I haven't liked it for a long time, I'm really tired of it, is that if we're going to fund it, I would think we would make the funding contingent upon the district attorney agreeing with us that civil lawyers are not going to be utilized for anything other than Tulsa County work where we have a stake in what goes on, that they would not be used for forfeiture actions. They would not be used for expenses or anything else where we don't have a dog in the fight. Because you see how quickly all you do is bring this up. All I did was bring it up last time, and all of a sudden $40,000 is off the table real fast. Well, let me tell you, that tells you something. If you really needed it, it's really legit, I'd be in here fighting about $40,000. And by the way, and this is just one more little blow, 25 years ago, the county paid nothing and had 4 lawyers. Now the county's paying $600,000, $700,000, it has 4 lawyers. We never got that 5th lawyer that we paid $100,000 for 25 years ago. We can't seem to get that 5th lawyer to keep it. So if we're never going to get a 5th lawyer, fine, but let's at least get what we're paying for and not have it siphoned off to deal with other issues. It does bother me that while this does not rise to the level of a criminal misappropriation, I'm not saying that, so please don't twist my words and say something I didn't say. I didn't say that. But if you're given money for a certain purpose, you really should use it for that purpose and nothing else. And nothing else. It does bother me that the chief law enforcement officer of this county takes money that was intended for one purpose and gets used for something else. And I would recommend that we have that agreement with the district attorney's office before we fund anything. And if that's not the will of the board, like I say, I'll live with it, but I don't think we should allow it. And with that, I conclude the remarks, Mr. Chairman.
With that form of motion.
Well, let me ask the chair, since you are the chair, would you be willing to send a letter to the district attorney's office and ask them, so I don't have to word this motion, requiring the district attorney to agree with us not to use lawyers from the civil division other than for matters directly related to Tulsa County business? I'm not sure.
Might be right there, I have to have a discussion with him. See exactly what he says about it.
Okay.
We're kind of putting contingency on the request. We're supposed to finalize the budget, so I do it. Have a conversation first.
If I might, although he was caught off guard, it wasn't fair to his father the last time he brought him here to answer these questions. It was my understanding and recollection that he stated that in terms and in regards to asset forfeitures and or expungements, that civil service was used for the civil service part of those things. I may have heard that wrong, but I think before, again, and I know that Mr. Simler stated that, we're not accusing him of misappropriation of funds. It's still a pretty big finger point when you, especially if you write a letter in an accusatory manner for a cease and desist on the district attorney to stop using county funds for which they were not intended. I think that's pretty strong.
It is.
Somewhat of an accusation, and I don't know that that's true. I don't. Maybe he is. I know that I have nothing but 100% satisfaction when it comes in having worked with these guys and gals on a daily basis. Our civil lawyers save us thousands upon not millions in lawsuits alone, and they do a heck of a job, and they're overworked. And if anything, they should be given more. Contracts are slow. I don't know that I'm blaming the civil service because we have the same issue with some of our contracts. We're still waiting on a contract, and we're going on almost a year. But I understand, some things have to be prioritized. So I think that if anything, before, of course, Chairman can do what he wants to do, but before we do that, we give them the opportunity to come in and tell us exactly what they're used for. On top of that, if the same premise that we're stating here is that they're using county funds for things that don't benefit the county, would that be true across the board here for everyone? Every entity funded by the county, and if they use their money completely to benefit the county, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say that's not true. And I'm not saying it's misappropriation of funds. I'm saying that there are things, whatever those things may be, that sometimes you use those funds and it's not in an illegal manner, but in a manner that, I guess, for lack of a better term, roundabout way of using county funds, which they were intended, but may not look like that on paper. And I guess if you can tell me that that's true and correct for every entity that the county funds, then great. Then I think the last thing is that Mr. Coonswater come in, explain it, and if he says you're right, Mr. Simler, we've been using it for this because we're low here or whatever, and we make that decision at that point. That's just my 2 cents, and I think, but in making this decision, we should see the grand picture of this thing.
Mr. Miller?
I'd like to speak to the expungement question that came up. Every year we've been working with the city on expungement expert review. And what that basically is giving people an opportunity to come down and expunge the records that they have if they meet the qualification. Now, when we expunge a record, when we're done, you cannot find it. It's not there. It's completely removed. So if we mess that up and we make a mistake, and somebody gets an expunged record that should not have an expunged record, we have eliminated the entire record. You cannot come in and find it. There is no record of it. Unless you know the number and we happen to have written it down somewhere. It's not in the system, there's no file, there's nothing. So when the DA works with us on these things, they're making sure that there are no mistakes, so that we don't have a liability of expunging a record of somebody who should not be expunged. So there is some correlation with what we do in our office and what they're doing to make sure there is some county work.
Yeah, that's not really what I'm addressing. I'm addressing where somebody comes in and files a petition to have their record expunged. And then the civil division lawyers are in there either agreeing with it or contesting it. And
So
either way it goes, the county does not, we're no better off or worse off, however the court ends up ultimately ruling.
What you're saying though is that if their opinion is that it should not be expunged, they're contesting it. Is that correct?
Well,
in other words, they're
the more
representing the district attorney in this matter, or are they representing us in the matter of saying this shouldn't be done, and if you do it, it could be found a liability, or are they? Because that's what they're doing for us. That's why I'm just kind of trying to.
You're going to spend more time when you're contesting the expungement, where the former person, or the person who was formerly arrested or charged, whatever, is seeking the expungement. And the district attorney has decided for one reason or another that he does not want that record expunged. That's where you burn your time. But how the court rules, Tulsa County does not benefit from how the court rules, whether they expunge it or not. I'm just trying to restrict their work to stuff that benefits us. I think they've gone too far. And just again, example again, those forfeiture actions where they're trying to seize money that was in a vehicle. Well, whether they are successful in seizing that money or not, there's no gain or loss to Tulsa County.
Are you saying that their help helps you prevent you from future liability, may cost the county money?
That's kind of what they do in relation to how about representing or doing that side of it where they're saying we don't think they should be done for the purpose unless it has to do with something with us and our liability. I don't know, because I don't know how far they go into that. And I know on the forfeitures, that's a situation that is going to happen, doesn't happen in the criminal court, it happens in the civil court. So it becomes that may be why that's handled by that division.
And then when they take the money, then the money, if they are successful, is used on the criminal side of the office.
I don't know.
No, I know that for a fact.
I don't know.
I do know that.
I was just gonna make a suggestion that the DA has offered to remove his request for overage, which would result in us not really needing to take action on his budget request. But just, I wanted to make mention that the chairman and I have been working on setting up a meeting with the DA to have some discussions about several of these items. And certainly I think before the next budget board meeting, we could try to get that to happen and sit down with him and have this discussion and try to figure out, you know, because I'm with you, it sounded like based on him being here last time, and I appreciate what the sheriff said about him not and being kind of put on the spot. But I mean, these are public meetings that we post, and they are specifically related to next year's budget. So anyone with an interest in that should probably be tuning in. But with that, I think we can have a conversation with him about these concerns. Try to get some assurance from him that you know, if that's happening, they make a change for that. And yes, and so I'd rather address it with him that way. At this point, I think I'm gonna lodge my concern about their speed on policies and contracts, and perhaps if they are spending time on other stuff, maybe that would alleviate our need to try to come up with some other way to skin that cat, which is what I was trying to do and contemplating paying for an attorney out of my office. So,
I can certainly live with it that way. I actually think that's the way to go. I think that he's aware of our concern. He'll at least be a little bit more careful on how those attorneys are utilized. But I think they'll probably have to be addressed every year for a while until a new way of thinking sets in, if it ever sets in.
agreed. We do have one additional item that has come up related to the budget. I think this just came in pretty recently, so
We're
Aaron,
still at 5E.
I'm sorry, yes,
Still at 5E.
we still on 5E, sorry. Some communication from the state auditor's office, and I'm not sure what the date on it is, I have not even yet seen it. And so I think Aaron is going to give you all a minute to kind of look at this, but Aaron can give the Cliff's Notes version on it here fairly quickly, right?
Yes, we just wanted to make the budget board aware of this. It does have the potential to impact next year's budget, albeit probably not in a tremendous way. But this is something that will be, need to be paid out of the general fund, depending on when it is that they may be billing us for this. We may have to come before you and ask for contingency in this year because it was not something that was originally budgeted for FY20. I think in some of the discussion with the rest of the budget division amount, somewhere maybe 15 to 20,000, we're not really sure. So it's not kind of a normal amount. But
Not like the normal, your annual.
it's not like the annual one. But we did want to make you aware because it does have a potential into that one.
Y'all know what this is for, basically, sheriff's getting underpaid for holding DOC prisoners. It's also almost every other remedy, try to get money. Legislation passed, allow the state auditor, shouldn't be cut together, the state audit, determine what the rate should be to pay the jail, so that's what she'll be doing in this audits.
Yes.
We need to act on that.
Basically, is where
We're just bringing it here.
My suggestion is, when this actually occurs and comes up, we could take money out of contingency to handle this, but we wanted to bring it to everyone's attention.
Yeah, we're through discussing 5E. Any questions, comments on that?
Unless does anyone else have anything related to the budget that they want to change? Because our speaking on behalf of our budget division, we're going to take all the final stuff and start plugging it into the good old budget book. And I think, our thought would be to have, I can't remember what the date is on our calendar, to have approval of the budget.
I think June the 11th.
June the 11th is when we plan to have a meeting to have the board consider the overall budget.
Based on our conversations with DA, they go well, having to come to that meeting on the 11th.
Mr. Chairman, if I may pose a question, I know Michael Willis did an excellent job with the process of walking us through the individual request on the budget appropriations for the overruns. Will there be discussion on any of the individual items for the budget outside of this meeting today?
I don't believe there is unless,
This would be the time for that.
this is time for it now, it's not finalized.
Well, in book two, Mr. Chairman, the request by the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce for the Tulsa Futures Project, I know they underwent a recent reduction of staff of about 20%. Obviously, the ability for them to hold their usual meetings is a little bit impinged by the current COVID process. I have been in touch with Oklahoma County. Apparently, they are involved also with the Oklahoma City Chamber. But I take note of the fact that in their disclosure of the information provided for the budget board, they do make mention that some of these funds are used for lobbying efforts, and the question has always been brought up as to whether it's appropriate for public funds to be used for lobbying purposes. So I don't know if an appropriate reduction would be in order, perhaps in line with their 20% cut, which would be about a 15,000 reduction, which would automatically give us the funds for the request that perhaps is being requested by the state auditor for the anticipated expense that we may incur in the next year.
John, while the chamber funds, chamber membership dues do include money for lobbying, this is a special fund set up aside from that for economic development in the Tulsa area. And there's no lobbying in this. The amount of money that's in this budget this year, I believe it's a 5th year or 5-year commitment made to Tulsa Future. So it's facing off the amount we promised in 5 years ago for this endeavor. Mr. Keith, you want anything to that?
No, but I would acknowledge that we can't promise that we'll do something like that every year, but when they bring in huge industries to our region, it is a huge help to Tulsa County, and I think that we, in terms of ad valorem and other things, that this fund has paid off mightily for the county. But they do not spend, I do know that because we've had direct conversations about that. None of this money is used for lobbying, ever.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, on their disclosure within the book on page 2, the green book that we were given for the budget, they do break out their revenues and expenses, and they certainly provide a line item for the issues fund, which of course is the lobbying expense for the chamber. So I may request, Mr. Chairman, that this perhaps individual item get a vote. Of course, that's part of the electoral process for the public to determine what their elected officials desire to spend public money on. We do have at least one election that may be affected by this year. And I'm wondering if it'd be appropriate to have an individual vote on this particular item.
Make a motion?
If you'd like it in the form of a motion, I would like to have this one particular agenda item voted separately and independent from the rest of the budget.
Second?
Well,
Are you, if you could clear that up a little bit for me, Don, what exactly is the motion, the lobbying part and the expenses detailed in the green book, or?
Well, I guess it would be in as much as if this is going to be the only time that we are considering the budget items and the anticipated vote on the budget as a whole on the base budget for the county. I'm just requesting that this particular issue be voted on independently, in as much as, you know, the chamber is a private entity and they're disclosing that some of these funds are being used for lobbying purposes. And I just believe it'd be appropriate for budget board members to go on record whether they endorse funding the chamber to the tune of $75,000 out of public tax dollars.
I think it would be appropriate to have the chamber come here and address your question.
hold on just a second. My suggestion would be that before we have our meeting on June 11th, that we ask the chamber, I mean, that this would help, John, have the chamber give us a detailed list of what the issues fund really is. Because, I mean, yeah, I think you could construe that it could be used for lobbying, but you could also construe that it could be used to buy TV ads for a vision campaign or for whatever else might come up, marketing wise or whatever. So if maybe we could ask them to give us an explanation of what that is. And then at June 11th meeting, if the desire is still to have that as a separate item to be voted on, we can certainly do that then, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
Sure. That makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to yield to Michael Willis's point as long as we're able to discuss this at the future meeting.
Sounds good. We'll do that. We'll get it another day. Dana?
Go ahead.
So our plan was to have the books finalized when it's finalized for the meeting. I'm not using these time frames, I want to make sure you set enough time to get a deadline onto the statutes. If there is a change to the budget on June 11th, Every time we work that, we should budget, you want to just vote on the final budget. So what?
We have to publish, yeah, we have to publish the final number in Tulsa World June the first. June the fourth is the latest that's going to publish in the Tulsa World, for all the general fund, cash fund, all that stuff. So I have to have the number by.
June the first,
That has
that's
to
the
be,
publish.
yes, in the newspaper. All that, all the fund balance.
Because of
All
the
the
public
budget.
hearing.
So,
I have a conversation with Mike Neal and if need be, if John has got the new. Mike Neal and I talk about this topic tomorrow, probably we'll get an answer, get this resolved one way or the other before you put out a final book.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
So do we need to have another meeting scheduled after the next BOCC Monday?
Well, let's see,
If we need it.
if John's concerned can be delayed, conversation with Mike, and I'd have to do it.
Okay.
Work, John?
Part of the explanation from Miyuki was not very legible in as much as she's speaking from the audience. My understanding, we have to publish this in order to be conformant with the expectations of the law by June 1st.
Correct.
correct.
So you and I have a conversation with Mike Neal, hopefully tomorrow sometime, to talk about this. Work?
I'm willing to yield, Mr. Chairman, as much as there does not appear to be an enthusiastic second to my desire to have a public vote.
Thank you. Be in touch. Any other issues? Motion approved. Five E, or 4E.
well,
What's the design, what's the put? Variances included in the budget. Did the changes.
well,
Can't have a final vote for the books here.
right. I guess I'm confused about our calendar and were we gonna have, was the plan today to have an overall approval of the budget?
Right, right.
Okay, well, we can do that. I just kind of hate to do that without having this issue that John brought up
So we have a-
handled.
I think you yielded on the issue.
Yeah,
Could we not hold another meeting on Monday after BOCC?
You got 2 meetings, so run that to ground, see if you want to take action on it. Get together, get it 2 weeks, get it incorporated, doesn't go somebody. So
Well,
you got our June 1st. 2 weeks.
Maybe next week
Next
sometime.
week.
Well, so we're gonna have a holiday Monday, we have BOCC on Tuesday. Could we meet Tuesday and have a final list of funds that we're gonna, with a final tally list? And that'll give Ron and John some time to work on the other options. What out with everyone?
What time?
Tuesday afternoon, next Tuesday?
2 o'clock Tuesday.
If we could do anything before 2, I've got 2 for the Broken Arrow.
Probably be fine with me, wouldn't it?
Yeah, could we 1 or 1:30?
1, yeah, 1 or 1:30. Does that work?
Next Tuesday at 1 or 1:30 for a quick budget board meeting to make a final approval, and then we'll get the budget books turned.
Say from 1 to 1:30.
Yeah, 1, that'd be great.
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
Next Tuesday.
That
Good.
Okay, so we're going to 4F, legislative report. Gus, play.
Well, we had a good first half of the season. And by the time we got to spring break, 13 bills, we won 12, we lost one. And every one of the ones we won by a huge margin, 40 to nothing, 42 to nothing. No opposition, no organized, nothing. It was the best year ever. And then they went on spring break, which we thought was going to be a week, and it ended up being 7 weeks. And when we came back, the speaker and the president said, we'll knock this budget out before we fall out. We'll knock this budget out in a week. And then we'll spend a week or two and we'll dabble in some policy. But probably only with economic development and health. Those are the only bills we're really going to deal with. Well, the budget took a little side load. Governor vetoed it, they overrode it. That gave us more time. So they only spent 1 week on policy bill. And the only bill of ours that actually worked all the way through and went to the governor was the property says clean energy bill, the PACE bill. That one, because it had an economic development hinge to it. And because this is the second session of the 54th, 57th legislature, we start over next year with the same 12, 51, still the same 12. Pretty much might be the same legislature and we'll kind of start over. So, it's an odd session.
I've lost track. What happened? Did we ever get to the pension funding from health department and all that?
Yeah, I mean, every bill we had.
Did that one pass?
Yeah. I mean, every
That's
bill,
one body.
the only bill that we had that failed was the hazard mitigation system for flooding and fire. It was the only one that went to the floor that failed. Everything that went to the Senate floor passed, everything went to the House floor passed.
Pass the other body.
And then it stopped.
Okay, so did the governor sign that pension?
No, what I'm saying is, it stopped, and when they came back 7 weeks later, they didn't pick any of them up. Of one, they picked one up.
So we're gonna need to redo that next year?
Yes. Yes. That means the work of February and March was sort of for nothing. But at least we know how we voted, and we won't change the bill. In fact, as I'm sitting here, I get a text message right now from Senator Pace asking me if you want him to carry that misdemeanor drug bill. Which nothing changed and they were passing. It was a great record. It just got sidetracked. And it happened to everybody.
So, give us about 2 minutes, quick update on CARES.
We got almost $114 million. CARES fund. We have to spend it by the end of December. And there's a massive confusion on what you can spend it. If you read the federal statute, it would appear to say you can only spend it on government costs, the cost of government.
County government.
County government, government function. And that you can't spend it on anything else that's outside of government function. Nonprofits, small business, helping those people. But that's not what the regulations say. And the regulation and the guidance and everything that's come out of the Department of Treasury doesn't say that at all. It says you can use it for the community, however, anything in the community was impacted by COVID-19. The commissioners could decide that's an appropriate use of money according to the Department of Treasury. So who do you follow? You look at the law, which is like 7 words, use it on cost of local government, and then they hand it off to Treasury, and Treasury writes all these examples and all these things that you're allowed to do. And they're doing it all over the country. And yet, in Oklahoma County and Tulsa County, the district attorney's offices aren't sure that's legal. So they would like the attorney general to kind of give his point of view. Can we or can we not spend other than county government? You guys are all safe. Everybody in this room is safe. All those requests. There's no question about that. It's when you go external to this building and you want to help people. The Treasury Department says you have to help them. That's what we gave you the money for. We told you here's money to help people who've lost their business. We knew that you and county government aren't in private business. So who did you think we were talking about? We told you to help people get meals or long distance, remote learning, remote working. And we weren't just talking about getting, that's not what it kind of says in a few words, but it does over here. So it'll give us all hopefully soon.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Chairman, report, John, I know you guys are concerned about securing people in the audience. For others have the same issues, so IT on a temporary basis is going to take some microphone back underneath the chairs and stuff so people like you can hear better about what's going on back there. As much as you know, the request has gone and worked. Hear me?
Mr. Chairman, the audio today is much better than previously.
Well, I haven't done it yet.
It'll be even better.
Yeah. No new business I'm aware of.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Here, here.